Welcome to The Explainer. So what's the real difference between a market gambler and a true master? You might be surprised to learn it's not about being smarter. Today, we're diving into the story of a speculator who had it all, lost absolutely everything, and in doing so, discovered that the market is one of the most brutal tests of character you'll ever face. This isn't just about strategy, you see. It's about the psychology of survival.
That's the question, isn't it? And the answer has almost nothing to do with predicting the future. It's really about mastering yourself. We're going to follow the journey of a trader who had this incredible raw talent, but he had to learn this lesson in the most painful way you can imagine, by going completely broke.
All right, so our story kicks off with a young trader who just had this almost intuitive gift for the markets. We're not talking about complex algorithms or some kind of inside scoop. Nope. He was tapping into something way more fundamental: human nature itself.
You see, he was what they called a natural tape reader. He could literally see the story of the market playing out in the flow of prices alone. And remember, this is long before computers. He's sitting there manually charting price movements because he understood that patterns repeat for one simple reason: human fear and greed never really change. For him, the price action was the news.
But here's the thing about early success. That feeling of being ahead of the curve, well, it can plant the seeds of a really dangerous weakness. He started to believe his own hype, you know? He confused a hot streak with having it all figured out. And this is where the trouble really starts.
And this is where you can really see the dangerous gap between his ego and the market's cold, hard truth. In his head, he was a genius who couldn't lose. But in reality, he was basically walking a tightrope without a safety net. He was scaling up his bets without scaling up his discipline, throwing the basic rules of risk right out the window. It's a classic trap.
And boom, this is where he got his first real taste of pain. This quote, it's not just some clever saying you see online. For him, it became a scar. It was a foundational lesson in Rick that, unfortunately for him, he'd have to learn all over again, but on a much bigger scale. Now, he did bounce back from that first loss. In fact, his success grew to incredible new heights. But here's the irony. That massive wealth he built, it became his biggest liability. It fueled a level of recklessness that wouldn't just lead to another loss, it would lead to complete and total ruin.
At this point, he wasn't really trading a strategy anymore. He was just chasing the thrill of the ride. The market became his personal casino. He was so convinced he couldn't lose that he started ignoring the very signals that had made him successful in the first place.
So how do you chase even bigger thrills? Well, you start using massive leverage, basically trading with borrowed money to juice your bets. But leverage, as we know, is a double-edged sword. It didn't just expose his profits to risk, it put his entire fortune on the line, totally vulnerable to a single bad move. And then it happened. A spectacular losing streak kicked off. His small losses, which he just refused to cut, quickly cascaded into devastating ones. He wiped out years and years of hard-earned profits in a terrifyingly short amount of time.
And just like that, he was bankrupt. But listen, this is the most critical point of the whole story. He wasn't wiped out because his strategy was wrong. He was wiped out because his temperament, his psychology, was completely unprepared for the pressures of that much success. So after losing everything, he had this incredible realization. He didn't need to rebuild his bank account. He needed to rebuild himself. And from the ashes of that failure, he created a set of unbreakable rules, each one forged in the fire of painful experience. These weren't theories from some book. These were his personal laws of survival.
Okay, so this is where the real transformation begins. After hitting absolute rock bottom, he had this profound realization. The key to the market wasn't about being smarter than everyone else. Not at all. It was about being more disciplined.
This quote right here, this is everything. It captures his single biggest aha moment. The truly life-changing money, he realized, wasn't made from clever entries or slick exits. It was made by sitting, by having the patience and the sheer conviction to hold a winning trade through its entire major move. And let me tell you, that kind of patience is probably the rarest skill of all. He finally understood that market intelligence is absolutely worthless without emotional control. The shift in his mindset was fundamental. He went from being an intellectual gambler, trying to outsmart the market, to a disciplined speculator who patiently reacted to what the market gave him. And that right there is the transition from amateur to pro. So after decades of wins and losses, of highs and lows, he finally codified his ultimate philosophy. And it wasn't some complex, secret system.
It was actually a series of core principles that all centered on one inescapable truth.
What's so powerful about these principles is that they're not a secret formula, they're a framework for your own behavior. He finally got that long-term success isn't about finding some magic indicator. It's all about mastering your own impulses and managing your risk with relentless, unwavering consistency. And that brings us to his final conclusion. You see, the market is a mirror. It reflects your own flaws, your impatience, your fear, your greed, right back at you, with very real financial consequences. A speculator who doesn't understand himself is simply doomed to repeat the same painful mistakes over and over again. So what this entire journey really teaches us is that success in the market is an inner game. The strategy, that's the easy part. The real work is on yourself, because the market is a mirror that will always find your weaknesses. So the final question isn't whether you can predict the market, it's whether you're truly prepared to master yourself.